Hey everyone, it is Wednesday, and when it's Wednesday, that means we bring back Anna Kelly to the show. How you doing today, Anna?
I'm doing great, Michael. How are you today?
I'm doing very, very well. I'm pretty excited about this conversation. I know we've been through some hard times. We've got through some April rent collections. They were better than we expected for both of us. But I want to get out of this just junk that we're all suffering through. And I want to take our 40 to 50 years of collective experience and go, you know what? What's real estate investing 2.0 going to look like? And just for time frames, let's assume it's the second half of 2020 and all of 2021. So if we can look to that future, I think we both agree it's going to be different than what we headed into. So why don't you
Yes.
kind of share what you think of that idea, and then we'll kind of peel it apart and see where we see the chess pieces.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, Michael. I think right now, the last few weeks for so many have just been, look at the fires. Let's figure out how to get through the crisis,
Mhm.
plan, mitigate whatever we think is coming, and, just get past April, see things stabilize, and then take a breath and say, okay, now let's not totally take our eye off of the goals that we had set and the things that we thought we could do. And look at how maybe some of our goals need to shift a little bit because of some things that have happened in the economy, and how that might change some of the fundamentals of why we invest maybe in certain asset classes, and whether there might be some other opportunities that we're not currently focusing on, that might be a place to at least shift our strategy partially so that we can take advantage of what the market actually gives us.
Yeah, so let's maybe first talk about, let's again assume it's July 1st or August 1st, whatever date you want to pick as the summer. Some things that I could say with pretty good certainty first. Let's kind of set the chessboard first. One is going to be owner occupant forbearance is not going to be the cure all that many think it's going to be. Is that kind of a fair chess piece, you think?
I think it depends on your market. I know I
Hmm.
say that a lot, but I really think it depends on your market, the supply and the demand, and the average price of the home,
Okay.
and the type of employees that are buying in that market.
Okay, so give some examples. One where forbearance would be helpful, and then one where forbearance might not, just so we can get the extremes maybe in your mind.
Forbearance might be helpful in terms of the borrower.
Yeah.
I think if you're in a position where forbearance is your absolute last resort, then yes, you take advantage of forbearance, and you might have a risk of it impacting your credit in some way in the
Hmm.
future.
Yeah.
But when it's a last resort and you're out of other options, then that's where you go for it. I think it's a very unattractive option if you have other options.
Right.
So, for example, I'll just give you a real life example with myself.
Mm.
So in my multifamily properties, if we ever got to the point where we needed the forbearance, we really have to be telling the lender, we are basically illiquid, we have no other resources, and our property isn't stable, which is why we need you to give us a little bit of a break.
Hmm.
And the break that they might give you for 91 days, you still have to be back up to normal after
Yeah.
that, and you can't evict anyone the whole time you're paying it back in many instances,
Yeah.
and you can't take an owner distribution. So it really binds your arms to not be able to have control of your property.
Right.
So absolutely wouldn't do it. I thought for about 20 minutes about maybe asking for a forbearance on my beach house properties. So some of the people that are hit the hardest right now are hotel and
Mm.
Airbnb investors.
Right.
Like flies, all the people that wanted to book their properties are dropping out. So I have two expensive beach house properties on the East Coast that really rely on about 11 weeks of the summer to bring in all of the income for the entire year and to cover all of their expenses.
Wow.
And I already had one cancel. Thankfully, mine are kind of high end and not very many people have yet canceled. But my management company, like many other management companies and Airbnb, basically said, we're not going to pay you anything anymore until they've actually completed their stay. So before, we'd get chunks of cash every month for deposits. We'd use
Mm.
that to cover our mortgage in the off season. And then you'd catch up in the summer, make all your money. Well,
Mm.
when people aren't paying, you might not be able to pay your HOA fees and your condo fees and your mortgage. And my expenses on one beach property, even without the management company fees, about $4,000 a month. Well, that's a
Oof.
pretty big hit if I have to go all summer covering that without any money. So I thought about maybe asking the bank to hold off. And when I weighed the options, the fact that they can report to my credit that it's in forbearance.
Hmm.
So even though it might not be a ding in my score, it's still there. I thought, do I really need the forbearance? No, I don't really need it. I have the money to cover it. So I'm
Hmm.
not going to take advantage of it when it could be a detriment to me.
Yeah. Yeah. When you think, it's interesting we got here, because this is another topic we're going to talk about, is again, when I look at the chessboard, I see less Airbnb, I don't know what you call them, hosts, in 6 months, right? The market got, I'll call it frothy, but I'm saying that from a guy who doesn't have any. So my opinion shouldn't matter. But there's a lot of beach communities and a lot of really small markets that are great holiday seasons, right? Vacation spots, but really don't have a real economy. So I'm guessing some of those spots are going to be hit pretty hard, I would guess.
Yeah, I think at least in the short term. So there's a couple of things when we talk about opportunity.
Mhm.
For some people that have these beach houses, they're going to be hit hard and they'll probably lose their properties. What that means is you're going to have a flood of supply again of beach type of properties or vacation type of properties. And you've got to sit back as an investor and say, do I believe in that this thing is going to rebound, and that if I buy at the right price, I can sit on it for a while
Mhm.
and wait out that lag until people start vacationing again and kind of forget about what happened, because they will.
Right.
So, for me as an investor, I have two very high-end beach houses, and because of that, I haven't had a ton of cancellations, because most of the people that are paying $4,000 a week to go to the beach haven't been hit as hard, and they're probably waiting for this thing to be over so they can get to the beach.
Right.
So if I can buy another property for pennies on the dollar, I might buy several more,
Mm.
realizing that, I may have to wait for that upside and that income. But if I get a good enough deal and it's a solid area, then I'll buy, and that'll be a great opportunity. You just have to be really careful and not pay anywhere near retail if you're dependent on income that may take some time to come back.
Well, let's just play this out and we'll just use rough percentages so we don't have to put any dollar amounts out there. How far would the properties have to fall in value for you to buy the ones next door, right? You have two today. Let's just assume your neighborhood's about equal. How far do they have to fall for you to say, you know what, I'll take the two next to me? Is it 40%, 50%, 80%? What roughly?
Sure. So I think, again, this is very market specific. I
Sure.
think if you are buying in a place like Texas, which I've actually been waiting to find the right Airbnb rental in Galveston, Texas. It's right outside of Houston. I grew up going to the beach there and I know the area pretty well.
Okay.
Galveston, Texas stays hot most of the year. They've got about a 9-month rental season. So
Hmm.
instead of like Ocean City, Maryland, where I am, where I need 11 weeks for people to fill it up, it's 9 months that it's hot. So people are there in their bathing suits and bikinis starting in the beginning of March and not done until November. So in
Wow.
an area like that, you can also buy properties right now for half the price of what I have to pay in Ocean City to get 11 weeks of rental income. So
Wow.
if I see things go on sale in Galveston, Texas, or in a southern warm beach area where there's rental income all the time, not just from summer travelers, but spring breakers and lots of different conferences and people that just want to get away,
Hmm.
I would buy them if they fell probably 30 or 40%
Okay.
easily,
All right.
because I know that I'm going to fill them at least part of the time and probably profit. In fact, Galveston in 2017 was marked rented.com's most profitable place to own an Airbnb in the United States, the third most profitable.
Oh,
And the
wow.
reason is, Michael, because you've got this long rental season and the purchase prices are cheap. So
Hmm.
even if you're vacant a lot, you're still going to at least break even.
Wow.
And that to me says opportunity. Where in the Northeast, my beach houses are in the $500,000, $600,000 value range.
Okay.
And I might make, I bought one as a short sale, and I bought one at about 55 cents on the dollar at an
Hmm.
auction.
Okay.
The reason that the one I bought 55 cents on the dollar, I'm not going to be significantly hurt if I don't get a lot of rental income, is because I bought it at 55 cents on the
Yeah.
dollar. So I have all this upside. So
Right.
even if values start to come down, I know I could sell it and still make a small profit
Okay.
and not worry about not being able to cover my expenses. The one that's a $600,000 range, I depend on 10 weeks of year of that income, and then I
Mm.
use it 2 weeks just to break even. So, and I bought it for $97,000 off retail. So I
Oh,
bought it
wow.
at about 80% of its value,
Hmm.
and I'm still at a break even proposition because for me, it was more of a second home that
Hmm.
I'm using that income to cover. So for me to buy another one in that community, I'd really probably have to get it 50 cents on the dollar, 50,
Okay.
50 cents on the dollar to know that I could cover the $7,000 a year in HOA and condo fees. And
Yeah.
that's the thing a lot of people don't think about is if you have a single family home, you can get by with probably no HOA fees. But most vacation rentals have condo fees, and those condo fees go up. The one I bought 55 cents on the dollar, the condo fees went up 100% after I bought it. They doubled their assessment. So that cost me a couple $1,000s more a year. I was shocked, that it went that they could raise it that much, but they can't. So there's so much fixed cost to these things, especially if there's a condo, that they could go up. And unless you buy it for pennies on the dollar, you're on the risk that if you can't fill that thing, you're out a couple $1,000s a month
Mhm.
plus your mortgage, that's mortgage, taxes, insurance, HOA fees. So it's a risky game unless you, like anything else, you buy right.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out what's that number for you in your market.
Yeah. You got to learn your market. I talk about it. That's like my broken record. You got to learn your market because every market is different. But once you learn it, you can make those decisions. So come on, people, learn your market. Use this time at
Absolutely.
home to learn your market. Better your future.
One other interesting thing, Michael, just because we're talking about this as an opportunity, is even though in a recession, beach house property values and vacation rentals tend to go down
Hmm.
somewhat, the rental income actually tends to go up in a recession. And the reason for that is that a lot of people, while they can no longer afford big, fancy, 2 week vacation somewhere or going overseas,
Yeah.
they'll drive 3 hours away to go to the beach and
That's a
have a
good
weekend
point.
trip or a trip. And so, statistically, at least in the Northeast where I am, I've looked at recessions, and surprisingly, the rentals actually do better than even though your values may go down. So
Yeah.
it's got to be a long-term play that I'm using this for income. But that's because people still want to get away at least for a short day trip or a
Yeah.
weekend trip, even if they can't afford the big vacation somewhere else.
That's an excellent point. And you're right. In recessions, it's always interesting to see what actually does better. And that makes total sense, right? You're no longer doing the European or Asian or Australian vacation, but you know what? You still got the 2 weeks. You still want to take it. You still want to get out of town. Shoot, go rent a beautiful house on the beach somewhere and just chill. It makes total sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm still bullish on beach houses and Airbnbs. It just has to be in the right location and at the right price point.
At the right price. Learn your market. So next up, next.
And to that
Oh, go ahead.
point, I'm sorry, one last thing.
Mhm.
I think those properties you're going to see coming on the market in waves and even maybe short sales and foreclosures faster than you will owner occupied homes
Yes.
because so many people that have a beach house or an Airbnb, they just cannot afford to make that monthly payment without those renters coming in. So they're
Mhm.
going to start dumping them a lot more quickly. So I like the idea of keeping an eye on a vacation rental that you want to hold long term
Yeah.
sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because what I'm seeing in that kind of market is everybody's gonna get 90 days forbearance no matter what. So Airbnb folks, same answer, but it's only going to be the owner occupants that get up to a year, right? So you're absolutely right. I think the second half of this year we're going to see some Airbnb folks, cry uncle and say take it, which will ultimately be a short sale, most cases from the bank. So yeah, this is why I think the next 6 quarters are going to be interesting to watch. So learn your market for sure.
Yeah.
The next thing that is a chess piece on the board is lending. And whether it's lending in multifamily or lending in single family homes or lending in non-traditional mortgages like beaters, it's tighter. And I'm thinking it's going to be tighter for the rest of 2020, but I think it starts to relax in 2021, right? Because my history says it tightens up fast and quick, and it probably overreacts. And then when it gets, the economy gets going again, we don't have double-digit unemployment anymore. Lending will relax in 2021. Is that just wishful thinking? Am I just hoping, or do you kind of see it the same way?
Michael, with what's going on, I really don't know. I
Okay.
really don't. I mean, I think it's probably tight for at least a year,
Yeah.
in my
Oh,
opinion.
okay.
And
Oh.
in certain markets, even tighter for a little bit longer. For example, on vacation rentals.
Mm,
Before, if I bought a second home, I could get in with 10% down.
for
Wells
sure.
Fargo was the only game in town that was doing that. Most were requiring 20. But
Yeah.
they didn't make me escrow. They didn't make me, have reserves. I think for um, asset classes like this that can be impacted again in
Hmm.
another pandemic, if we were to see one, I
Yeah.
think they're going to make you have a lot more reserves and a lot more money down if it's not your primary home. So I think vacation rentals, they probably make you have stronger reserves
Sure.
and more money down. I think for apartment complexes, those who are value add investors who are
Oh,
looking to buy big apartment complexes,
yeah.
many of them buy something that's stable. They go through an agency loan, and they might make you hold reserves for big repair items that they see, but they'll give you interest only for a few years and let you operate without a lot of reserves.
Mhm.
Instantly, Fannie and Freddie basically increased their reserve requirements to a full year of mortgage, taxes, and insurance. Plus, they raised their minimum debt service coverage ratio,
Mhm.
and they're lowering the LTV that they'll finance. So where before in a big market you could get 80% financing, now it's 75. And I think that a lot of these value play properties that have used their capex and they no longer have big operating reserves, and suddenly they have these big hits, the government's going to want to say, how do we hedge our bets from this going forward and make sure we're only lending to the most liquid, highest net worth, highest experienced investors, and requiring them to hold back more. So
Mm,
they're already doing that, and I think that that's going to be there to stay for a while,
for
to
sure.
kind of weed out these newer syndicators that are coming in that really don't have a lot of experience to navigate these things.
Yeah.
So I see that tight for a while. Eventually, lenders want to lend, and if they don't get enough deals coming in that they can lend on, they'll start to relax. But I think this is going to have a bigger pain point for big multifamily and beach rentals than it will for your average single family home that you're buying to
Yeah.
rent out in your neighborhood.
Yeah. I agree with all that. I think it's getting tight everywhere today, but I guess my reference was to the single family market, which is the biggest lending market out there,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
when that gets tighter, it hurts the most, but I think that starts to loosen up early next year. And then, yeah, vacation rentals, you're going to be putting 20% down for sure, if not 25. And multifamily, to your point, um, that's going to be uncomfortable for the next 18 months for the most case, I think.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is I think we've probably talked about this before, but you're going to see higher mortgage interest rates.
No
So
question.
because
Yes.
of all these things that are happening and the fact that servicers are now on the hook for continuing to make payments to investors, even without that rental income coming in, mortgage-backed security investors are going to demand a higher premium.
Hmm.
Servicers are going to demand a higher piece of the profit. And so we're going to have higher rates. And so if we have this big supply of properties because of foreclosures or people losing jobs or whatnot, and couple that with higher interest rates, it's going to drive property values down. So those that can afford higher interest rates, even if the credit requirements aren't quite as good, it's going to force out some people that are doing mediocre deals because they get such a good deal on the interest rate, that
Yeah.
you're going to have to be really smart about buying below the new reset values that might be a little lower, and be able to handle a larger debt service payment. So
Hmm.
you're going to need higher rents too. So you just got to weigh all of those things. There's always opportunity in every single market, and higher rates at least equates to lower prices.
Yeah.
And you'll just have to look at what your rents are to see if you can buy something at the price point that you need to be able to cover the debt service and all your expenses once you get what you need for rents. But
Yeah.
I think there's a real opportunity.
Yeah. The other area I want to talk about is builders. I kind of feel bad for them, right? New construction builders, right? Not just single house builders. I'm talking like neighborhoods, right? Or tracks. They came into this environment ramping, right? They were just recovering from the depths of the last crash. this came over. I don't know if you saw the numbers today that came out for builder sentiment, but it's terrible. It's at 30.6, and their traffic is at
Wow.
13. Right, when you get below 50 is bad, and their
Uh,
traffic is at 13. So, uh, at least in my market, again, it's always local. You got to know your market. We were seeing inventory stack up for the first time when we looked at it in mass, and we're like, "What's going on? That was different than we expected." But when we looked at it, about 35% of the new listings were builders listing their inventory and giving full 6% commission, to that agent, because they're no longer selling it in their house that they had built in their model home.
Mhm.
So we've seen
We
a,
saw the same thing.
oh,
It's like you
wow.
wanna find a house and you weed through so many that are just the repeat of the same builder's different models, and you get down to
Yeah,
a few, because the owner occupied stuff, they were selling like hotcakes, just not
exactly.
enough supply to keep up with the demand. And so, the question is, how bad is the demand really hit
Mm,
after this thing is over in your market? And I think that really depends on the types of jobs that were there,
yeah,
and how badly they were hit. But also, I think, Michael, that consumer sentiment is going to be rocked for a while, and people
exactly.
are less apt to go out and go, I need a new house where I can have the nicest new crown molding, and I can have hardwood floors through everything, and I can have granite. I think some people for a while, unless you're, in Hollywood Hills and you can afford whatever, I
Mm,
think most people are going to go, you know what, instead of buying that brand new house, I think I'm going to go buy a house that's 10 or 15 years old and just put a little into it and
yeah.
just be content without all the bells and whistles.
I think that, again, this is a new concern for me, like in the last 4 hours after reading this metrics and tying all these data points together. I think builders were just starting to crank. They have a lot of inventory hitting the market right now because they were aiming for the spring selling season, right? This was a
Yeah.
plan. They wanted the inventory to land now. But now what's unfortunately going to happen is when we exit this, the psychology is going to be different. They're not going to want to stretch to that new home. They will either stay put, or they'll go buy the one that's 100 grand less and it's 20 years old, and they'll make it theirs. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's just, there'll be
Yeah.
less
And I think
builders.
that happens not only with people that were hit really hard, but just anybody that sits back and thinks hard about money and what you really need. I mean,
Yeah.
I have been in my house 6.5 years. And while I love my house, part of me is like, I'm half an hour away from my kid's school. We don't have a pool. It's so expensive to build a pool. Maybe we'll find a new house. So I was kind of house hunting leisurely,
Sure.
if I can find something that has more land, has a pool closer to school. Everything I was looking at that I wanted was $200,000 trade up at least. And
Oof.
so I start thinking, if we're heading toward a recession, and this was before coronavirus,
Yeah.
am I really going to be happy that I spent $200,000 more, have a higher payment, going through all this? Or if I think a recession's coming, am I just going to be more content, get a membership at the nice, country
Yeah.
club or pool instead of spending 50 grand on a pool or 200,000 more for a house? You
Yeah.
start to rethink about how else can I get a bang for my buck without spending so much more money. And I think a lot of people are going to start rethinking that, moving and upgrading.
Yeah. I agree. Again, in my market, inventory, I mean, inventory was much higher than we expected when I was going through this with an agent I know. And then we peeled it back, and it's just all these new homes. And that is going to be a
So
problem.
here's the question, Michael.
Mhm.
How do we create a win-win situation for builders
Ah, there we
that
go.
entices them to sell to us more cheaply
Yep.
on brand new product that we might be able to keep as a rental property,
That's the
if you're
key.
in a market where that rent is still going to be lower than what they would have to pay to buy that house? And how can you create a win-win on new construction on builders that just don't have any other buyers and they want out?
See, I like it the way we think. I reached out to a broker, the second largest broker in my market yesterday, telling her that, hey, I'm going to guess you're going to hear some strain from builders, and I'm ready to buy dozens of brand new homes, but you've got to tell them that I need the numbers to work as a rental property. So I'm not paying
Right,
retail. I'm not paying close to retail, but if they want to sell me a tract, let's talk. So those
right.
those conversations started on Saturday. I think that's what you have to do. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to buy a lot of them, but they're going to have to work as a long-term
Right.
rental. and it's not paying retail either.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I think there's going to be
Yeah, that's
business
the
there.
key. And absolutely. And if you have some skills and experience even building, and you think you can build, it might be a time to buy some of the land out from them that they haven't already built. If you can get it at a good price point,
Yeah.
and wait for when it makes sense for you to build and put your own rentals there. So a few months ago, we were looking at a property to buy
Mm,
where we thought there was some land, so we would build units on that land and additional units in this complex.
mm.
And the cost to build was, quite frankly, more expensive than if we just bought something else. And so it was like, okay, suddenly land value in multifamily isn't that attractive because it's still going to cost too much to build, even if we do it on our own.
Mm.
But I think when the economy's hit, the costs will tend to go down for a while. So it could become cheap enough, to build again.
Yeah.
But you'd have to have experience to do that. I'm not going to buy land hoping to build on it, but I think there's opportunity there for those that can and have that experience.
Yeah. That's one of the areas that's like, yeah, I understand the value and that could be interesting, but stay in my lane. I like dealing with the structure.
Yeah,
Like I don't mind changing the structure inside, move walls, add bathrooms, but I'm not creating a structure. That's not my thing. So the
yeah.
next
I
chess.
really, where I see the most opportunity coming is
Mhm,
those single family homes. If you can buy single family homes
I agree.
in the first time home buyer price range, or maybe just a tad higher, when they start coming on the market, people that are renting apartments now, they might want to start thinking about a house, but they probably still can't afford to buy it
Mhm.
and don't have the credit to buy it. So they'll rent from you. So I think that's where the biggest opportunity is going to be in the next year and a half, 2 years, is
Yeah.
buying up single family homes and keeping them as rentals.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like you were reading my notes because that's where I wanted to go next. Because I believe we are going to be even more of a renter nation going forward. But
Yeah.
it is going to. I think it'll pivot from apartments to houses because one of these things, shelter in place, that's going on is, shelter in place in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 800 square foot apartment with neighbors on both sides versus a 995 square foot house with a backyard and front yard. Very different experience. So what happened, I know the house is more expensive, I understand that, but two apartments could partner up and rent a house and probably save money, at least in
Right.
my market. um,
Right.
I think that's going to be common, and I think the answer is going to be single family homes for the next 18 months. I just don't see it going any other way.
Yeah. I do too. I mean, I think that there will be some opportunities for those big apartment investors to bail out and help other
Yeah.
people out, create a win-win for a long-term hold. But I think for the average
Yeah.
investor, that wants to be able to find what's the next thing that they can pounce on, and get in the game. I think looking for well-priced single-family homes in your market that you already know or in your backyard, and being able to buy something that maybe needs a little bit of work, and keeping them as rentals, waiting for the market to
Yeah.
start to correct, and then maybe cashing out some of the equity, I think will be a strong play. So I've already started looking for some singles
Me too.
in the last week again, just to say what's coming up in my area that's a house.
Yeah. I think this is so funny. You've read my book. So this is just a repeat of my book. Uh, I went out and bought 7 or 8 houses out of the gate. Prices increased over time. And then we 1031'd out of houses into apartments. And if you put the time frame together, that's going to play out again because most of the multifamily, and again, I don't play in the big area, I play in the 5s to 20 ranges. Those folks are going to start coming up 2 or 3 years from now because their debt will change. And I'll just 1031 out of these houses that I got at a discount into multifamily again. And I'll just do 8 to 80 again. Maybe it'll be 20 to 200. That is
Yeah.
absolutely my plan.
Yeah. And I think that's the key for both you and I, and other investors should be thinking about this, is if you pigeonhole yourself into, I am just a single family rental investor, or I am just a multifamily investor, or this is the only way to do it, you will not be able to make the biggest bang for your buck and your time over time when the economies change. And so every economy gives you something different, and you've got to be
Yes.
able to say, how can I do what I'm already really good at and make a slight modification to make myself valuable to what the market is giving me, and
Mhm.
then make that into an opportunity. And so, I said, I think at the beginning of this year, maybe it was the end of last year, I'm never flipping another house again. Like, it's not worth my
Yeah.
time. I don't like it. I don't have fun doing it. I make money at it, thankfully, on all but one, but I just don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time, I saw something hit the market today, and it's a half of a double, like a half of a duplex, individually owned. It hit the market for 69,000. Right now, redone, they're 140.
Huh.
And I'm like, if I got that thing at 60, I could put 20 in it and I could hold it and I could, and
Yeah.
I'm rethinking, okay, am I willing to do another, not a flip, but another bigger rehab?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. But the difference is, instead of putting in all my own sweat equity, I'm going to pay someone else to do it, make a little less profit, but I still see opportunity and it can be worth it if I just shift a little bit. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think you've got to constantly be saying, where are the opportunities?
Hmm.
Where are the risks? And how do I capitalize on that and use that asset class for today,
Yeah.
even if a few years from now, I want to shift gears back into something else?
Yeah. I think real estate investing 2.0 for me is going to be single family homes, right? Owner occupant buyers have disappeared. Lending is tighter. Sellers are nervous. Builders are nervous. I'm just going to be aggressive and cheap, right? I'm not going to overpay, but I'm going to buy a lot of
Mhm.
single family homes. You've got to learn your market. And then just like last time, when the market turns around and everybody comes back in, that equity will build. I'll 1031 and move all the money into multifamily again. It's kind
Yeah.
of rinse and repeat. And I don't even feel bad about it. It's just what the market gives me, and I'll just take what the market gives me.
Right. And I think the key to not feeling bad about it, none of us are here saying take advantage of somebody.
Hmm.
But the reality is, this economy is going to hurt people. And
Yeah.
the way that you do things and do things the right way is, you have to look at yourself of, how can I create a win-win?
Yep.
Not to take advantage of them, not to like turn the knife that's already there, but to say, you have a problem, I have a solution.
Hmm.
Can we work with something that we can both feel really good about at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And that's how we continue to grow, and to do it with integrity and really legitimately help out a lot of people that don't have any other options because of what the economy's given them. So
Hmm.
you just have to shift your mindset. And if that's not your mindset, you need to, self-reflect and say,
For sure.
this isn't about greed. I'm not going to take down people, mull them over in the way, but I'm going to say, how can I help people
Yeah.
and use that to my advantage as well? So for me, I still want some small multifamilies. I'm going to
Yep.
start target marketing probably next week. Some of these landlords who are so worried about May rents, maybe have already been hit with April rents,
Ah,
and
yeah.
tell them, hey, you might not want to be a landlord right now. I'm willing to create a win-win situation and see if I can buy some more 4 unit, 10 unit, 20 unit buildings,
There you go.
from those that just aren't willing to let rents dip and have people rent strike and all of that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be, I think the next 18 months is going to be the time where, if you, again, think about what I'm saying, right? It's July and August is when this start. That means between April and July, learn your market. This is going to be the most opportune time to learn your market, because it's going to change in real time. The first 8 years of my
yeah,
career, it was kind of up and to the right. It was hard to understand. And I didn't see it roll over until 2007, 8. Now
yeah.
it's happening, folks. Learn your market, learn your market, learn your market, so you can take advantage, like Anna and I, for the next 18 months. I'm excited by what's to come.
Yeah, and study your market, what specifically happened in 2008, 2009, and 2010. Because you
Agreed.
want to be able to say, not just, oh, everything's going to continue like this, but how did this market fare then?
Mhm.
And it's probably going to fare comparably now.
Yep.
You might still have to discount what you're willing to pay, maybe another 10% in case it fares worse for a
Hmm.
little bit. But
Hmm.
I think you study the ups and the downs of the cycle,
Yes, for
and
sure.
that'll give you a good long-term perspective of, if I'm buying this as a long-term hold, here's my best case, here's my worst case. I'm still going to profit, even without appreciation, just on an income basis, and buy for income and potential future appreciation. Don't overpay,
Yeah,
and know the market that you're investing in. And yeah, you'll be ready when it's time.
that's awesome. Well, this has been a great show. Exactly what I hope we would talk about. It's always interesting. We have no idea what we're going to talk about when this starts, and 30 minutes later, we got a great show.
Awesome. It's
All
it's
right.
always fun for me too. So I hope your
Awesome.
listeners get value from it.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.